What's the best thing about Stockport?
How fast you can get out of it.
That it's huge.
It is the source of the River Mersey.
Or it could be the infamous pyramid.
The world-famous viaduct.
The viaduct.
The viaduct. Apparently Fred Perry is from Stockport.
Fred Perry.
Fred Perry.
Fred Perry. The worst thing about Stockport.
People walking to the shops in their pyjamas.
I don't really know.
250 million years ago, Stockport was part of an ancient desert.
There's everything that you could possibly want and more.
Stockport's the place to be.
Mark Steele's in town.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Mark Steele's in Town, which this week comes from the beautiful village of Stockport. Famous for its cream teas at the Mersey Shopping Centre and its gentle farming folk of Adswood. It's a cultured town, Stockport. There's an account on Twitter called Twitter on Stockport, and a typical comment I saw was, my driving instructor used to say, we'll drive up to Bramhall today to catch the MILFs on their school runs. Millions of people in this country every day mention Stockport when they're on a train and go, oh, brilliant, we're coming into Manchester. Oh, sod it, it's Stockport. I always forget about Stockport. And when you pass through Stockport station, you can see a sign that shows what Stockport has to offer. It says, Stockport, home of Stockport College. That is marketing, isn't it? The railway station here has also come up with a marvellous scheme. There's a tunnel that people walk through to get from Edgeley to the city centre. And they put ticket inspectors on either end so that now you need a rail ticket to walk through the tunnel. Because it's only fair that if you want to walk through an underpass, you should have to buy a peak time return to Bristol for 380 quid. But Stockport is surprising. Firstly, because no one can decide where it is. To start with, it was in Lancashire, then it became part of Cheshire, then Greater Manchester, then Cheshire again, then some bits in Cheshire and some bits in Manchester. Now, most of it's in Cheshire, so you have to wonder if this confuses some people who say, well, we've booked up a little weekend break in Cheshire and hoping to relax with some wine and take a ramble across the downs and rather cheaper than we thought in a little spot called Edgeley. Only drawback is if we wish to stroll into the town centre, we've got to buy a peak time return ticket. But Stockport is huge, with hundreds of bits. There's not so posh like Reddish and Edgeley, and more posh like Cheadle and Cheadlehulme, and then there's Marple and Romilly and Bredbury and Gatley and Davenport, and I bet there's parts of Argentina that go, I don't know how it's happened, the since boundary change, we now bother Stockport, I don't know. There's about 30 places called Heaton. There's Heaton Chapel and Heaton Norris. I love how even within the Heatons there's a hierarchy. You've got Heaton Norris, which is the slightly less posh entry-level gateway Heaton. And then there's Heaton Moor and Heaton Chapel. Heaton Mersey. There's Heaton Academicals. Here, there's such a mix that in one 5-minute walk, you can pass a row of back-to-back houses, a micro-brewery, lads in hoodies sniffing drain cleaner, a park with a Tudor manor house, a football ground where even the pitch is made of rusty corrugated iron, a motorway, a glass pyramid, a Waitrose with 900 flavours of asparagus, a nightclub you can get in free if you bring your own chainsaw. Stockport's like a kid's drawing. You expect the next row to have an iceberg and an astronaut and a dinosaur. And everything seems to be a bit of a mixture of part rough or part grand. A headline in the Manchester Evening News said, Stockport gang see man get arrested, then break into his home while he's out to steal his vacuum cleaner. That's so Stockport. For example, Edgeley was where I first developed an affection for Stockport, 2001, because I came to Edgeley Park, where Stockport County were playing my team, Crystal Palace, and Palace won with a goal 3 minutes from the end. So we all came out, and at the traffic lights, this car drove up and a woman wound the window down, and she just went to me, next year I hope you do get relegated, and then I hope you get relegated again and again and again and again and again. She said, and I hope you get relegated so many times you end up in Scottish League. But it seems there's always been this side to Stockport. There's a book I've got there, Stockport, A History, which is written to show off the joys of the town. And it starts with the boast, Stockport is what Stockport was, an irregular, ill-built, dirty place that no traveller would ever wish to see again. But this is unfair, because it did have famous travellers. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels came here, and Engels said, Stockport is renowned as one of the duskiest, smokiest holes, and looks, especially when viewed from the viaduct, excessively repellent. Engels went on, last week I was arrested for seditious and revolutionary activities, and when I was released I discovered some bastard had nicked my vacuum cleaner. The River Mersey comes through Stockport, the most famous and iconic of any British river. And you've done it proud, Stockport, because whereas Liverpool... Liverpool has only given it a ferry and a few anthems, but you've treated it properly. You've paved over it and put a Primark on it. Every single person I've met here has asked me the question, which football club is nearest to the River Mersey? Not Liverpool or Everton, mate, it's Stockport. And you're proud of this, because that is the main thing with a football club. Real Madrid might keep winning European Cup, but they're miles from Mersey, so it don't count. It's all about going somewhere, Stockport. You're right next to the M60. You've got famous railways. You've got the airport nearby. And you've got the most famous bus route in the world, which is Stockport, the... 192. The 192. The 192 from Stockport to Manchester, which has become the most celebrated method of transport. Like the Orient Express or the Apollo 11, or the Stockport Twitter account. Someone has summarised the atmosphere it creates, writing, they should bottle the smell of the 192 bus and use it as a weapon in war. This is the sort of exchange you read about on the 192. On a forum, somebody wrote, the 192, does the shirtless man with a rabbit still get on? And the next person replied, he's the driver, mate. What is it? Have you all been on it? You get used to it. I know, I've been on it and I can see it and you get used to it. A bloke will sit next to you and go, yeah, all right, mate, my name's Kelvin. Of course, that's not my real name. You know, the M60, I own all the cones on it. Only as far as Denton, like, you know. Here, I tell you what, me and my mates do. On a Sunday, we ski down the side of the pyramid building, like, you know what I mean? This is my stop. If anyone asks, I'm Kelvin, aren't I? I went on it on a Monday night. I thought, right, just one little trip on it. Nothing's going to happen, is it? And honestly, this is true. Honestly, there's a bloke at the bus stop, and he went, hey, mate, all right, hey, we might have 2 minutes, or we might have 20 minutes. You know what I mean? He said, what should we talk about? He said, you can have the Beatles or Beethoven. I said, what's your favourite Beatles song? He said, what's yours? I said, I Am the Walrus. And straight away he went, sitting on a cornflake, waiting for the bus to come. That's brilliant, mate. That was brilliant to think of that quick. And then it came and we got on and he said, and my favourite Beethoven symphony is the third. He said, it was only when my brother was dying that I realised how powerful that symphony was. And then he went, I am the Eggman. I am the Eggman. And it was very moving, and it made me wonder whether the 192 is not actually a bus route, it's a travelling theatre. And the passengers all get back to the garage and go, oh, Sir Kenneth, your alcoholic war veteran was a triumph. Now, there is a possible explanation for why some people are a bit eccentric here, because this was the centre of the profession known for sending people peculiar, the hat business. The damp air at the foot of the Pennines, I'm sure you all know, it was perfect for making felt, and there were dozens of hat factories, and you get the impression that the hat trade was a very, very fun trade to be part of. For example, the solution that the felt was treated by was made with sulphuric acid, mercury and meths, and the foreman would taste the acid to check check if it wasn't too strong. Now, I have to ask you this. Do you ever walk through Stockport and think, yeah, that sounds right? There's a website that tells you where to take kids for a great day out they'll never forget. And one of its main recommendations is the Stockport Hat Works, which focuses on the development of the hatting industry, from its humble beginnings in the cottage industry to the mass production of the early 19th century. Yep, your kids will never forget that day out. Even when they're 60 and remembering it to a shrink. It has a marvellous piece of writing there inside, next to one of the exhibits. Hats have been worn by many people, including Carmen Miranda, Yogi Bear, the Duke of Wellington, Top Cat, Anthony Eden, Ali G, Noddy Holder, Dick Turpin, Lennox Lewis, Inspector Clouseau, Robin Hood, Bono, Jackie Onassis, Maid Marian and Catwoman. But now, if you don't mind, there is one suggestion I would like to make for how it could be improved even above what it is. It's got a huge chimney, because it's an old mill, isn't it? It's got a hat museum written down the side. So the chimney needs to have a hat on top, doesn't it? Don't you reckon? The mayor's here. Get it sorted. Chris Gordon, Mayor of Stockport, here in all his regalia and finery, as you are. Chris, I have to ask you this, because I think this is where you must be unique as a mayor of any city, I would guess. What is it that you do when you're not doing your mayoral duties?
I'm a member of the Roller Coaster Club of Great Britain, and I go roller coastering.
And how many times have you been on the Blackpool roller coaster?
I've been on the big one over 1,000 times. The only drawback in being mayor of this town, because it's a wonderful thing to do, is the fact that you can't go roller coastering very often because you're too busy.
I know. I mean, I can imagine that, you know, with all we've heard about political officials in the last few years, they don't hear that side of things, do they? Thanks very much to Chris, your mayor. A lasting and even more glorious result of your industrial past is the magnificent viaduct that I'm sure you're very proud of. And it's got more bricks than any other building in Europe, 11 million, an extraordinary structure. And the Victorians who built it would be thrilled, I think, I can honestly say that it's now marked at one end by a McDonald's and at the other by a B&Q. I think there are fascinating angles as well to the industrial age, loads of it. Stockport, a history there says, education became available to the lower classes as religious groups established Sunday schools. Stockport was especially prominent as the home of the largest Sunday school in the world. And I couldn't help thinking, oh, come on, Stockport, do you have to make up daft boasts about everything? How old are you, 4? We've got a Sunday school. Oh, that's nice. It's the biggest in the world. And there are other tourist attractions here I'm sure you're familiar with. John Bradshaw, who was the judge in the trial of Charles I. It was John Bradshaw who sentenced King Charles I to death. And he was a key historical figure, which is why he's marked with a Texaco garage on the corner of Stockport Road and Church Lane. There is a plaque on the wall, but more importantly, that garage sells, I'm assured, the longest Twix in the world. You've got the most glorious air raid tunnels. You all been down the air raid tunnels? These are the tunnels that were quickly built under Chestergate in a couple of years before the Second World War that held 6,500 people on nights of bombing. And they weren't originally built as air raid shelters. They were actually originally built by someone trying to get from the centre to Edgeley without having to buy a ticket. But you have to keep battling here in Stockport because you're having to stand firm now against the most powerful of all the foes that you have faced in your 800 or so year history. According to the Manchester Evening News, Bramhall has been under siege from a mischievous gang of peacocks on the rampart. I'll try to stay calm while reading this. Jenny Gibson of Laleham Green was terrified when, in a scene reminiscent of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, a peacock came into her kitchen and made a mess. She said the damage was unbelievable. They knocked my kettle over and broke a blind. And then a 68-year-old grandma was quoted in the Manchester Evening News as saying, "They're vermin. I'll be glad to see the back of them. They poo for Britain, these peacocks. I was cleaning up for 3.5 hours. I'm a very clean person. It was a nightmare." Does anyone know where the peacocks came from? Have you all come across these things? They just arrived. You don't question this? We had zebras last year. So, at this point, I would like to introduce you to Linda, your counsellor. Linda, you've been dealing with this peacock issue.
Oh, I have. It's been a nightmare. I'm in my 9th year and I've never come across anything like this before. But there is some good news. I've had one transported to Heaton Park to some other peacocks.
And they don't just fly off in a sort of like a normal bird, do they?
No. Vertical, up, straight away. In fact, when we tried to get it with the net, with the RSPCA, it nearly took the inspector up on the roof with it. So, you know, they are quite strong. Percy, who I call him, I've got a bit attached to him, really. He likes grapes laced with gin. And I mean, we all do, but yeah. And cheese. So, you know.
Cheese?
Yeah,
if you're going to feed a peacock cheese, which particular sort?
Well, they like it grated cheddar.
You've not tried it with Stilton?
Yeah, he didn't like that. He spit it out.
Thanks very much, Linda.
You're welcome.
I think they're perfect. They're perfect for Stockport. A mix of all social classes. You've got wild animals, but they're peacocks. You've got peacocks, but they're working class peacocks. Any lip, mate, and I'll knock your kettle over. But also, I mean, there's loads of other things that's unique to Stockport. Were you aware that at the town hall it has? I had a little go on it. In fact, something that I was assured by all people in Stockport, the biggest Wurlitzer in Europe. By the biggest Wurlitzer in the town hall is a sign saying music has been listened to by many people, including Henry VIII, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, Holly Willoughby, Pingu, God, Catwoman. The musical heritage here, it must be why Strawberry Studios was here, where the Smiths and the Stone Roses recorded their albums. What else musically has come from here? Because there were loads of bands, weren't there? 10cc, yeah. The Hollies, all right. Blossoms, oh, that's there now, aren't they? Bee Gees. The Bee Gees? I'll just shout out anyone. Bruce Springsteen. Judith Chalmers is from here, which is perfect. Because she's glamorous, but then she announced recently she always used to record her holiday programmes while wearing no knickers. It's Stockport, mix and match. Joan Bakewell's from Stockport, and she's now Baroness Stockport, and they're thinking of putting up a plaque saying Baroness Stockport's house, home of Baroness Stockport. But the Stockport figure who probably sums up the area, the glory and the complications of the town more than anybody else is, I think, Fred Perry. Because Fred Perry was the last British man to win Wimbledon before Andy Murray. And Fred Perry wasn't just from a posh bit of Stockport. He was born in Carrington Road in the centre of town. His dad stood as a Labour candidate in Stockport in the 1924 election, but he didn't get in. But he did become the youngest Justice of the Peace in Stockport. He became a Methodist preacher and a speaker for the temperance movement. So his passions were staying within the law, being true to Jesus and rejecting alcohol. It's no wonder he didn't get bloody elected in Stockport. Fred Fred became a junior table tennis champion, but he didn't start playing tennis until he was 15, by when he'd moved to London, to Ealing. And he wanted to enter the annual schoolboys tournament at the prestigious Queen's Club, where they still have the tournament before Wimbledon every year. He was the first person ever to take part who hadn't been to public school. So when he arrived, he was asked by a commissioner there, which school were you from? And when he said Ealing County, the commissioner said, well, in that case, there's nowhere for you to change. And so Perry said, all right, and he just changed in front of him on the floor. And he said in his memoirs, I made up my mind at that point I wouldn't let people order me about. Bloody-mindedness was one of my specialities, and revenge wasn't against my principles either. And I think that is Stockport. Even your tennis players sound like Al Pacino in Scarface. Fred Perry went on to win 8 Grand Slam titles, including 3 Wimbledon titles, and the first time he won, I think it's an amazing story, the first time he won, it was against an Australian called Jack Crawford. And Fred Perry describes in his memoirs the moments after winning. He says, I went for a bath in the dressing rooms and overheard the Wimbledon club chairman. Secretly, he went up to Jack, not knowing Fred was behind the wall, and said, sorry to Jack, he said, I'm afraid this was an occasion when the best man didn't win. And he gave Jack Crawford a bottle of champagne, and Fred said, when I came out of the bath, my winner's tie was lying on the floor. I've never been so angry in my life. Some of Fred's friends who came down from Stockport did celebrate with him, and according to one account, they actually did go up to Jack Crawford, and one of them said, now I hope you lose again and again and again and lose so many times, you end up in the Scottish Tennis League. Then, as anyone from Stockport would have done, Fred's next move was to have an affair with Marlene Dietrich. Because it's a tussle, Stockport. It's a tussle between industrial sogginess and glamour. So the old market is a proper old market, under a glorious glass roof, said to be the second shiniest glass in Europe. And it has dozens of stalls that mean, according to the Stockport Council website for the market, Stockport Marketplace provides a shopping experience like no other. Like no other. I thought, what have they got in there? What can you buy? Herds of buffaloes? But it goes on. The stalls on the street don't quite have the atmosphere of the indoor stalls, but could be useful if you're looking for a cheap tube of Colgate. There are other structures that straddle the Stockport way of thinking. It was decided that as this is Stockport, it was only natural that it should have a pyramid. This is a huge glass pyramid that not everybody trusts. Someone honestly told me, I'm convinced the pyramid causes loads of breakdowns on the motorway next to it. I've just got no way of proving it. On David Icke's forum, there was honestly, on David Icke's forum, there was a discussion about how Stockport's pyramid was channeling energy for the Illuminati. And they may have a point, because there was a plan to build 4 more of these pyramids and call them King's Valley. But every developer involved with the scheme went bust. And I can't think of any logical reason why developers building a valley of pyramids in Stockport during a banking crash would go bust. I think it's a glorious monument to Stockport in a way. Half grimy, half grand, showing off by being a pyramid, but not forgetting where it's coming from by having to go, I've run out of cash, can you sub me till Tuesday? But there is one other building that must be mentioned that can seem even more out of place in Stockport than a pyramid, which is the Plaza. The Plaza is a vast cinema and theatre that is so 1932 that the only explanation is that somehow when you go in there, it is actually 1932. And with us is Ted here. This is Ted, who I don't think I've ever come across anyone who had such passion for a building as you had when you were showing us around there. It's, so how did it come to be exactly like 1932?
Well, every single day is October the 7th, 1932 in the plaza. So, you know, she was built then, she was saved by the people of Stockport 15 short years ago, and it's gone from strength to strength.
And it's 1,400 seats, isn't it?
1,314, so...
There's not just a scent of obsession anywhere.
God, it's the most seat theatres of any theatre in Stockport, in fact.
The bit I thought was brilliant, if you're not aware of just how obsessive this is, the screws.
The screws. We're very proud of our screws in the plaza because, as I said, every day is October the 7th, 1932. And, of course, the crosshead screw wasn't invented till 35, 36 in America. So we have flathead screws throughout the building.
Yeah. And the projectors, they're all...
Yeah, the projectors, we've got, here we go again, the only 1928... Cayley projector in the entire world working in a cinema in Stockport.
Thanks very much, Ted. It's a brilliant, brilliant building. Ted's too humble to mention this, but during every performance, 3 people are carried out with whooping cough. There's a cafe above where you can get afternoon tea with scones and crustless cucumber sandwiches, and it is exactly as you would get if you went to the Ritz, except it's way better than the Ritz because it overlooks Stockport bus station. And at night, the plaza is lit up with these dramatic Art Deco neon bulbs that just dominate the whole horizon, and you can see it for miles as you're coming in on the 192. So Stockport is known for its cream teas. Stockport isn't either Bramhall or the Mersey shopping centre, it's both. If you ask whether it's the sort of place with vermin or the sort of place that has peacocks, it has vermin that are peacocks. Its British sporting hero was an unlikely tennis champion who the people running Britain look down on for coming from Stockport. And so I shall leave you, Stockport, with one of your many contributions to global cultural life, of which you should be so proud. Because when Morrissey came here every day to Strawberry Studios, he wrote these lyrics for a song about Stockport, which he insists will be put to music and released any time soon. And it goes something like, I think... Let your viaduct stroke me with its bricky caress. Let me struggle for breath in your sogginess. But Stockport, Stockport, to make up for cheap toothpaste I've not bought. There are days when I'd rather get my cock caught in the doors of the 192 than spend any time with you. That's why I love you, Stockport.
Mark Steele's In Town was written and performed by Mark Steele, with additional material by Pete Sinclair. It was produced in Stockport by Carl Cooper. It was a BBC Studios production.
Thanks very much.